I often talk about how I'm never quite ready when Chris starts counting down. Today I started hearing random music in the background. I couldn't figure out what it was. Chris had his headphones up across the room so high that I could hear our intro music from his headphones out here. I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. Anyway, I hope you guys had a great weekend. If you didn't make it down to the riverfront on Saturday to see Ragbri, just check out social media. From everything I've heard, it went tremendously well. Somewhere near like 1 billion people and bicycles came through. I have no idea what the final number they actually estimated was, but it was a brick ton, a crap ton, I don't know how we want to say it, but a ton. And it just goes to show, I don't know how many final volunteers there were, but I know there had to be hundreds and dozens of participating businesses and organizations. So great job, Muscatine. I'm always proud of us when, say what you want about Muscatine, we're not perfect, but the one thing that we do well is when there's a big thing, we all come together and get it done without question. So great job to the chamber. I know Brenda and Chris with Keep Muscatine Beautiful, really them as Almost Friday Fest. You guys all did a great job, so be proud of it, enjoy it, and then let's figure out what we're doing next. One thing on your calendar for tonight, don't forget Wesley United Methodist has the Josh Duffy concert as part of the Jackson concert series. Oh. So you can check that out on their website or on the Discover Muscatine community calendar, but it's a free concert that starts at, I believe, 6:30, or doors open at 6:30, concert at 7, but double check me on that. This morning, I actually have a guest who, she and I have talked for hours and hours and hours about random things. So you're probably going to get a real potpourri of Muscatine today, right?
Good morning, Chris.
How are you, Charlotte?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Of course. If you could, introduce yourself for those that don't know and kind of what you do at the Community Foundation.
Absolutely. So my name is Charla Schafer, and I work at the Community Foundation of Greater Muscatine. I've been there for about 5 years now.
And what do you do there?
So I'm the president, but I work really closely with the team and the board to achieve our mission.
Yeah, so you kind of help steer the whole thing.
Yep, I work alongside everybody. You bet.
Yeah, yes. Very good deflection.
Thank
Very
you.
good deflection. And you are absolutely a team player, but don't ever discount the role you play either.
Oh, thank you.
When Nikki was here last week, we were talking about the grants, and one of the things that I think is the neat thing about our community foundation, and I don't know if it is true of all others, is you guys, and I say this as a compliment, I don't normally, you guys have your fingers in a little bit of everything in Muscatine, right? And when I say that as a compliment, what I mean is you guys as a team, there's 10 of you guys down there?
Yep.
Ish,
Yep.
give or take. Anything going on in Muscatine, you guys seem to be there or find a way to support one way or another, right? Whether it's an official function or just lending your support, lending your whatever, there's not too much that you guys don't touch and figure out how to help. So
right. Our donors are, at the center of all of that. So we have community dollars that allow us to be involved with many of those, and then of course our community development approach has our team involved with a lot of different things.
So let's take a quick second, and I know we're flying without a script here, folks, so this is just a little bit of a riff between Charla and I, but let's take a half a step back and talk about that community development function. Because we all talk about, a lot of the guests talk about it in their particular little niches and
right.
things like that. But I think it's really important that the community understand that this is a coordinated, collaborative effort, right? It's research-based. There's been a ton of studies done about Muscatine, and you guys kind of found that there's a couple pillars of what we need to address. And what are those big pillars? Yeah,
so our board has identified housing, healthcare, and education, along with equity access, running under all three of those as our areas that we focus our upstream focus on. So we're trying to get upstream and not have the outcomes when we don't have those things in place. So that's where our primary work strategically goes. We've got about 300 charitable funds that we focus those dollars and efforts based on what those have been established specifically for by the donors. But on a strategic side of our activity, those are the areas we focus most on.
Well, and what I love about that concept, so like, you look at housing, there's a couple different veins of the housing need, right? There's affordable housing, there's some higher end housing. Like, we just need housing, period.
Across the continuum.
Yeah. You watch the housing market and a house is on for like 10 minutes and there's like 6 offers and,
I think Tone sold his in like 16 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like stupid numbers, which is, I mean, on one hand, it's a good thing, like it keeps things moving, but, we want to be able to have like some people that have jobs here that maybe are living outside the community move here
Absolutely.
so that, it's more effective, saves time and stuff like that, but also they can contribute to the community in other ways.
Well, and we often talk like rather than commuting, they'd have more time to commune with their children and families if they were able to find housing locally. We've got 11,000 people driving into our county every day that don't live here but work here.
Well, and the one thing that blows my mind is, why would you want to live in the Quad Cities when it's only half an hour away, right? Like, you can live here in Muscatine, you can have all the benefits of a small town, you can have more space, you can have whatever, and like, to drive to the Quad Cities or Iowa City, like everything you could possibly want is within about a 35-minute drive.
Absolutely.
Which is like driving from one side of the Quad Cities to the other anyway.
Right.
So I always think that's awesome. Like the Putnam, it's like 25, 30 minutes from my house, right?
You can run up there on a Sunday if you need to.
Yeah, exactly.
Or choose to.
Yeah. And that's not to say that there isn't a ton of stuff to do in Muscatine. I'm just saying it's another advantage.
For something, a different opportunity.
Yeah. Because obviously we're not going to have a Putnam in Muscatine, right? Because there's only one Putnam. But I think that's really critical. And healthcare is another one that, local healthcare is going by the wayside for a lot of smaller communities. And I will say our approach is so unique, like the new UnityPoint clinic. Jamie was here maybe 2 weeks ago talking about that. And if you could just kind of maybe give folks a quick overview of what, maybe how important local healthcare is for a town this size and where we're at, and then like that broad picture of what that clinic, how that clinic's going to operate.
You bet. So first, it's unusual for a town our size to have a hospital that's operating, and it's a 5-star hospital, so it's rated across the nation in the top, I think, 100. So we've got an outstanding hospital facility that's able to provide care, and then some of the more higher level care than can be in the Quad Cities or in Iowa City. But in addition, then we have the local clinic, and so the clinic is a bit aged. It's nearly 50 years old. The Community Foundation actually owns the clinic, and so what happened is we're ready to replace it. It's in sheer need of replacement. And so we'll build a new clinic. We've gotten substantial donations from our local industry, local individuals that's helping us offset some of those costs. And then once that's available, once the new clinic's online, the UnityPoint will continue to lease it as they have in the past from us. The beautiful part of that is first we'll have more space, and it'll be, we've already had docs that have committed because they'll have a new space that they can work in that'll be much more along best practices. And then secondarily, we'll have some additional space for additional providers because we have our ratio of providers to our population is low, and then when you look at Louisa County, it's almost a desert for providers, and so this will give us space for Louisa County as well as and really across the river to be able to access. But the beautiful part of this model is the community foundation or the community steps in front of a commercial developer. We own the building, but then the lease payments that come into us after we have manage whatever maintenance costs and so forth, and we grant right back out into the community for health care and to strengthen the healthcare system. And it's so unusual to have this model, but it's just an amazing model. So that investment the donors are giving us one time continues to revolve over the next, hopefully 40 or 50 years, just like in the past, strengthening the healthcare system. And what it allows for is we have a community committee that evaluates those granting opportunities, and it says, what do we need most in our community to make it continue to be a strong local healthcare? And then they can grant accordingly. Yeah, and what I love about that is, healthcare is a really, I'm going to say, finicky industry, right? Melissa and I got to be part of the team that redesigned the specialty clinic at the Children's Hospital
many users.
Yeah, just an amazing resource.
But it's amazing how getting those facilities right makes everything so much more effective. And that's what I love about how one little throwaway in what you said, but it's actually really a big deal, is going from a 50-year-old facility to a new one. It's not just about looking nice.
No.
It's not about, holes in the wall, not like hanging holes in the wall,
Right.
not like holes in the wall. It's about how each member of the team, all the way from the medical assistant through the provider through administration, can be more effective with their day. And to hear that providers are seeing that as a reason to come here, as opposed to the clinic being a reason, hey, I could bill out more hours somewhere else or whatever just because of the sheer time.
Right.
That is a huge thing in the medical world that I think a lot of people may not quite realize.
Yeah, no, we've had providers that say they want to stay based on the news, again, to exactly what you're saying and how they can best deliver service to their client or their patients. And we also had UnityPoint providers design alongside. So we stepped back and said, what's important for you? Because we don't know this space, right?
Yep.
And then once that was identified and designed, then we said, okay, now we'll go figure out how we can make ownership of this and and provide this in the end. And the other beautiful part of this, when we get done, and it's important, I think, as a community, it will still be connected to the hospital.
Yep.
So people will not have to necessarily travel more than one place to, do their labs or if they need to do radiology, they still will, because some people don't have transportation to be able to easily jump in the car and do that. And again, the other thing is, the time it will save rather than having to travel out of town, so you won't have to be away from work as long and things like that. But I think the location's an important one, and we want to make sure we maintain that.
Yeah, and I think the one other, what could almost be considered a throwaway that I'd like to take a second and touch on is that concept of the funds from the lease, once it's all paid for, funneling back in. Because one of the advantages of a larger healthcare system like UnityPoint is the economies of scale, right? Like, you have to have it, right, in order to survive in the healthcare world. However, that can make it tougher to make local decisions, right?
Right.
Because you've got not so much a conflict, but I mean, it's a little bit sometimes.
Right.
But
you're competing for capital.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then what happens is, because the community owns that asset, all the revenue from that can then be directed back to those things that UnityPoint, and this is something I should be clear about, it's not because they don't want to do it, right?
No.
It's just...
They have to make decisions,
it has to be economically feasible, right? And it gives that cash flow into some of those medically necessary support systems that you wouldn't necessarily be able to get otherwise.
Right. It brings that additional value that might not be available, and I think further strengthens our community. And UnityPoint will be one of the recipients, I'm sure, because they consistently have. But
absolutely.
there'll be a lot of other organizations within our community that are providing health care that we will be able to put dollars toward based on whatever good work's happening for health care in our community, or whatever good work is anticipated could happen.
And the third pillar, obviously, education. That's a whole thing in and of itself that, the school district is constantly on the front end of what do the employers need, what do the kids need, what's best practice, like all those sorts of things. And, what Nikki was here talking about was, Nikki was here talking about $240,000, just shy of $250,000 worth of grants that just went out into the community, right? But prior to that, back in, let's call it May-ish, do you remember how many dollars in scholarships you guys gave out?
So we'll give out 800,000. We gave out 800,000, around 275 scholarships, and that 800,000 would be also include renewable. But for students, on average, they received about a $5,000 award per applicant, which is just, again, generosity of our community that says I care about our students and their ability to reach have additional education.
Yeah. Like when it's time to put those in the paper, it literally takes up like a full,
it's good stuff.
It's like, you just like block off a whole page and just be like, there it is. Which is great. I love how the Community Foundation does that. And you guys are creative, you're effective, and it's fun to watch what you guys do because you do a great job of pulling everything together.
I would say, and I think you started this, though, what we didn't mention on the clinic or when it comes to any of the things we do, it's collaborative in nature, right? We have the donors at the center, we have partners coming alongside. The clinic project, obviously, we have great partnership, and we've had, industry have been amazing in their contributions as well. But every spectrum, housing is completely collaborative work we're doing. Education, we have a program called Fueling the Future where we take children on food backpacks, work to get their parents a 6 to 8 week certificate program, and then stay alongside of them while they're once they start work to make sure they're stabilized. And again, we just play a small piece of that, but we have a collaborative network that works alongside of that. So I think you can't solve complex problems in silos, and that's why Muscatine is, I think, successful in some of the work they do, is because they recognize that.
And I think, again, to take a half a step back, it hasn't always been that way, right? Like, Muscatine has had its challenges with silos before, and what I love about it is the tone of the community has changed drastically. Well, that's maybe being a little harsh. I don't mean that. But that collaborative function across all the agencies
continues to improve.
Yeah, it continues to improve, and it's been a conscious, dedicated effort on everybody's part, right?
Absolutely.
Like, because it takes a while. Because being collaborative isn't just as easy as like walking in the door and it works, right? Because you have a bunch of different organizations who, while generally have the same goals, each organization still has its own little like goals it needs to hit and things that its stakeholders want.
Right.
And getting all those things to kind of line up, it isn't just like, oh, hey, let's have a quick lunch and figure this out.
Poof, yeah.
Yeah, so it's been fun to watch that change, and know that it's an earned change, which earned change like that tends to stick around longer.
Yeah, hopefully, because again, we see a lot faster, I think, and stronger success when we work together like that.
Well, and even, we had started Discover Muscatine just a little bit before COVID, right? Mm-hmm. About a year before. And just watching the COVID response in this community, like you and I had conversations early on going, what do we do? You know what I mean? And we're like, how do we help? But again, like you guys, United Way, Salvation Army, the food pantries, like you guys started doing like, what was it, an update meeting like twice a week and something like.
There was a group, right?
Yeah.
Aligned Impact actually began that, but we were bringing nonprofits from all over the county together to make sure there was concerted effort and the gaps were filled. But I got to tell you, Chris, watching the nonprofits mobilize at the speed they did was, I think it has to be uncommon, but thank goodness for our community to see that happening. It was tremendous to watch, and the shift was quick, as it was for many businesses as well. I don't mean to like.
Yeah, no.
But it was just incredible to watch the care, trying to make sure people that now were under-resourced for different reasons could have resources, whether it be food or other needs. Well,
and some of the stuff that obviously I went to some of the more, administrative techie sort of things like, how are people meeting? Do they need right?
Right. But how are the kids getting their school? How are they reaching their education and their food and their education, right, through tech?
And this was one of the things that you brought up to me in one of those first conversations, which is why I love talking with you. There was this whole concern / I'm not sure exactly how to describe it, but where in less than stable households, let's say, when a kid's home more, it might create a situation for more problems,
Additional stress in the home.
Yeah, additional stress in the home. And then what are those resources going to need to be? Right. And just I remember when you said that, I was just like, my jaw dropped to the floor and went, oh crap, this is big. I think that was the moment that I really knew, okay, COVID's going to change everything we do. Because that's stuff that I would have never even thought about. But once you said it, it absolutely made sense. And you guys were all right there.
And I was going to say, or other services were available. But yeah, that is, it's a difficult, it's one thing to be home with a family where there's typically a structure that will support that additional stress, but in some families that there's not. Well,
so kind of shifting gears, because that kind of went sad for a moment there.
We'll pick it back up.
We'll pick it back up.
Okay,
which, but it's a real thing, and it's what you guys are there for. And so, even though tough conversations aren't always fun, they're good to have and make sure that people know that if those tough situations happen,
There's resources in
are
the
available.
community for that.
And one thing that as you talked about the silos, Muscatine often has been a silo of its own, right? Because we do a great job at things on our own, right? We have tremendous, industry, business space. We've got great nonprofits. So sometimes, but you've got a new role statewide that I think could actually be something that really helps kind of like even broaden that a little more. So what do you get to do now?
So I'm working with the Iowa Council Foundation in a different role. So I've joined their board of directors, and the Iowa Council Foundations is a group of foundations across the state that work together in concert, and then also separately depending on the different types of foundations and what their work is. But the Iowa Council has been instrumental in some of the work we've been doing because they bring best practice opportunities. They allow you to network with the other CEO across the community foundation spectrum in the state. And there's no competitiveness of community foundations. So everybody just wants you to learn what they're doing and how you can be better, and they provide resources. And it's been incredibly helpful for me because, as you know, I'm an old banker. I spent a little time at MCSA before, which was a blessing to have an opportunity to be at, and then came to the community foundation, and to have those kind of resources available has just been so exciting to learn from, to be able to share. And now at the Iowa Council Foundations Board, I've also been part of the policy programs for them on working in some advocacy issues and areas that they do, and this will broaden that scope. So I'm excited about, again, broadening the resources, broadening our touch points, being able to learn from others across the state. They bring in a lot of national resources, and even now at the board level, I'm finding that connectivity to those national resources is even stronger. And I think the other thing I'm excited about is not only how we can be supportive and help the council and try to, drive their mission, but also how across types of foundations we may be able to find resources or support where I didn't have those opportunities before when I was just working more with the community foundation specifically. And I feel like those will be beneficial for the work we're doing locally.
Well, I would imagine it's something kind of like, you see, and there's kind of like when we look at some media stuff, like you see stuff other people are doing and you're like, that's a good idea, we should do that. You have no idea how to do it, right? Like, or you might have like a general idea, but then you're like, okay, but there's gonna be so many nuts and bolts that it's a thing. And just having that extra little like access to somebody who's done it before, or you can shave so much time, energy, and stress.
Or what didn't go right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the biggest
because
thing.
we're growing and getting into some new opportunities that we wouldn't have had before to even test, right, or try. And so, and we were able to, we're doing a community grant writer with the city and the county, and the community foundation have co-funded a community grant writer. And we're able to, we had somebody from one of my colleagues reached out and said, we want to do that. So I was able to give them all the documentation we had prepared, which helps them speed up getting, we can't be patient in the work we're doing. And so anything we can do to help them leverage that, I think is important for each side.
Well, and I love that statement. Again, you toss out so many throwaway statements that actually have so much meaning and impact in them, we don't have time to be patient. And,
we don't.
And it doesn't matter whether it's any of the things, like even just going back to those three big pillars, right? Housing is mission critical. Like all of them are things that you sit and you watch, and 6 months go by, and 6 months is
a long time for a child.
Yeah.
And that's what I think we have to keep that reference point.
Yeah.
So often we sit and feel good talking at the meeting about what we should do, but you have to take action. And you can address the action as you go, and you can change a little bit as you go, but when you think about the impact on a child that may or may not have a resource or may not have a housing stability and what that's going to mean to them long term, we can't be patient around these items. We've got to keep moving.
And the extreme example of that is the whole ready, fire, aim. You guys don't do that, but you also don't have to wait until you get it perfect. You guys do a great job of getting the ball moving. And again, as part of that whole collaborative thing.
Right.
Like, let's just get it moving. We'll figure it out as we go, right? You're not going to get it right the first time. You never do, right?
No, and I think housing's an interesting one to bring up about Iowa Council Foundation. Because of some of the housing work we're doing at the Community Foundation that is a little bit more forward or more impatient, they're actually going to be offering sessions they're calling it River to River, but sessions about housing as part of a cohort that they're doing this year, and they'll be in Muscatine in October, so they can learn about some of the work that we're doing. And we have a lot of work to do, but it's just exciting that they've chosen us based on some of the choices that we've made to finish here of the River tour.
Which, you know, so okay, we'll swing back to housing for a second, because there's a cool little nugget there too, is the 3D printed housing,
Right.
which is, you know, I don't know if cutting edge is even the right, bleeding edge, like razors, I don't know. It's, you know, basically taking a kind of like an Etch-a-Sketch and combining it with a like concrete delivering boom, and it just goes and spits out concrete and makes a house, which it was fun to watch. Again, appreciation for our board, because that they're able and to say we want to address things in a way that may not be a typical way to try to address those. But the 3D printed house took a little bit longer than we hoped, because it was the first one. They trialed some material that they had not trialed before. That didn't work. They went back and went to what they had used, and the ones in Virginia had great success. The next one I think will go much quicker. But the fact is, we need more housing, and we need to see what tools are available. This will never supplant what's currently happening. It's just going to supplement it, right? It's just another tool for us to look at, and I'm super excited. Again, the intersectionality of housing, education, healthcare, all of these things, everything intersects, and to see the workforce training opportunity going on at the community college, where they're going to be doing a 3D certificate training, doing some research with their hemp program to see how that may work within the CREEP formula, like all these things. Okay, I knew nothing about that.
Oh, yeah. So MCC's doing two things. So they're going to offer the first 3D certificate for a 3D printing certificate in the state of Iowa.
And I knew that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then they have a hemp program, which they're the only ones in the state of Iowa to offer a hemp program. And as part of that, they're going to be researching how hemp as an additive to the CREEP formula may be beneficial. So hemp's one of the leading nationally materials that's being looked at for that, because it lowers the carbon footprint and it further strengthens, adds to the strength. And so they're going to be doing research around that as well. And they've been working closely with Iowa State. Iowa State's leading a lot of the 3D technology research in the state, but they've been working with them. And so excited about both fronts for MCC. And again, like first in the state of Iowa to be doing some of these things. And that's, again, just because we're impatient, right?
Yeah.
We'll learn and we'll get better and we'll keep trying things.
You know, I've often been told I'm impatient. And this is like one area where I love the fact that impatient in this case is really, really good.
Well,
right?
we hope so. But again, we've got to keep strengthening our community and the children, the lives of our neighbors and children, right? And that you can't wait.
No, and it's, you know, not being afraid to fail is one of the biggest indicators of success, right? Because, you're testing out 3D printing concrete materials, right? And you're testing it, so there's a chance it's not going to work. So if it doesn't work, it's fine,
right?
Because that's
we
one
went
less
to something we knew it did work, and we moved on.
If it would have worked, great. If not, it's fine. We'll just wipe that off, start over, and you kind of build that into your plan, and you know everything else that it's going to go one of two ways. It's either going to work or it's not.
Right.
But that's a really valid and valuable piece of information that you were able to get. So.
Well, and again, at the end of the house, we want to make sure it's what we would want to purchase. So we're going to make it the best possible that we can. And so those decisions are being made based off that vision.
Yeah, if you haven't ever seen it, they've got some 3D printing videos on their website, or just type in like 3D house printing. It's the craziest thing. It's like soft serve ice cream concrete, and it works, and it's just crazy, but it's...
Yep, they do 2 different rows of it, and then they insulate in between, and it's exciting. It really should cut down on, you should be able to build homes much more quickly, the envelope of those, and then the inside's done just like any other typical home.
Yep.
Your exterior is about 20 to 25% of the entire home and the home cost, but that interior will look just like, it'll be built like every other interior.
It'll look
so.
like a normal stick house,
Yep.
just
Yep,
like
we'll have
everything
walls
else.
interior that are added will be a normal wallboard and so
Yeah,
forth.
it's not like you're in a garage, concrete wall, basement-y sort of a thing, so,
yeah.
holy cow. We cover so much so quickly.
It's always fun to chat with you.
So just to kind of take, again, another half step back and kind of sum this all up for everybody, like, if they don't know what the Community Foundation does, just know that they're there making sure community dollars get to where they need to, as a big overall sort of a thing. Whether it's from donors and scholarships and individual funds for specific things, or whether it's, you know, bigger projects like housing, school, education, healthcare.
Right.
You guys are there, and it's fun to watch.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
I work with a great team, and as I said, we have a really vision board, so that helps with our progress. We've grown quite a bit, but if there's folks out there that want to learn more about what we do, would love to share. And again, grateful for all the people that have chosen to give back to their community through donations and commitments, whether through us or other organizations. But we make the community stronger when that happens.
So I have one question I'd love to ask people.
Okay.
What's one thing that you wish people knew maybe about the Community Foundation that they may not? Or maybe not just the Community Foundation, but maybe something that's coming up in the next 6, 9, 12 months for you guys. Just something that's maybe a little, you know, not necessarily right on the main path of stuff you guys are doing, but is there anything kind of cool that you'd love to
You know,
know?
one thing we haven't chatted about, and this was a fund that we have, but we have a fund called the South End Improvement Fund, and we've just got a new splash pad and pickleball courts, and Musser Park has some improvements, and all that's coming from, that we're funding all of that. We have a $2 million investment going into work going on the South End. The city's managing the project, but there's a case again where community dollars are being directed to the Community Foundation with a focus and a vision, and I think the outcome's pretty exciting. There's a lot of use down there, and it's super exciting to see people heading to the area to play and enjoying that neighborhood and community even more.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen the splash pad, I'm going to tell you how to go get just go check out Tony Tone's Facebook page and just like scroll back through the summer, and you'll see what it's like at the splash pad.
Yeah, and I think we've got the night out coming up.
Yep.
Is that maybe tomorrow, if I'm thinking correctly?
Yes. See,
And-
it's so great having a Margaret right over there.
Tomorrow, and so people can go down and enjoy the neighborhood and learn more about that, and get a chance to just enjoy neighboring differently. And I'd love to see folks and their families down there that night as well.
Awesome. So there you go, Muscatine. You know, if people say there's nothing going on in Muscatine, call them a liar.
There is a lot going on.
A concert tonight. You had Ragbri last weekend. You had 16 almost Friday fests between last Wednesday and Saturday, I think. I don't know. It was like nonstop party, basically.
There was a lot of fun going on.
You know, the Duffy concert tonight, that tomorrow
Well, and I
night.
think to that point, there's so many activities that are free. It doesn't preclude people from being able to join in
No.
if they can get to the spots that it's happening, and that's really it's a pretty cool opportunity.
You know, we talked about like our community calendar is always full, obviously, but like even like the library, they had the we were talking about this just before the show. The dinosaurs, and then a foam party.
That
or
foam party was
like,
crazy.
And you know, shout out to Betty and all the rest of them.
I'm
out
telling you,
there.
the library's rocking it out
I don't
this
know.
summer.
I don't know who's coming up with all those ideas.
I don't know.
But they're doing it. So,
There's going to be a lot of kids wanting to read books based on, you know, the cool stuff the libraries do, and so, yeah, kudos to them.
So, holy cow. Well, Muscatine, that's your show for today. And if you didn't learn something, you weren't paying attention.
Chris, we appreciate everything Discover Muscatine does to strengthen Muscatine as well.
Appreciate it.
So thanks
fun.
so much.
It's fun most of the time. Most of the time. Every once in a while, you know, maybe not. But the 11 o'clock fire, what is this? No, but
The hard work always isn't fun, but the outcomes
yeah,
are good.
it absolutely is. So, Muscatine, enjoy the rest of your Monday, and we will